All right, we will get started because I like to keep a timeline, keep on time. So welcome. As I was saying, at least on my end of things, this has been a much anticipated webinar. I think this might be our 5th that we have put on in partnership with Energy and Environment and Climate Momentum. I think 5th. Tonight's topic is waste, the ins and outs. And my name is Emily Chandler. I am the current chair of the City of Stratford's Energy and Environment Committee. And as I mentioned, this is put on tonight in partnership between our committee as well as Climate Momentum. And I'm going to turn the microphone over to Bill James Abra, who will start tonight's agenda with a land acknowledgement. Bill?
We'd like to begin by acknowledging that the land we stand upon is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Neutral, and Wendat peoples. And oral and archaeological records indicate that the Haudenosaunee, or the people of the Longhouse, have been occupying southwestern Ontario for over 13,000 years. This territory was subject to the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, signed between Indigenous nations in 1701, and was also subject to the Upper Canada treaties in the later 18th and early 19th centuries. We respect the long-standing relationship that Indigenous nations have to this land. This territory continues to be home to diverse Indigenous peoples, who we recognize as the original caretakers and its contemporary stewards. The Dish, or as it's sometimes called, the bowl of the Dish with One Spoon wampum, represents what's now Southern Ontario, from the Great Lakes to Quebec, Lake Simcoe to the United States. And the treaty acknowledged the shared responsibility of ensuring the Dish would never be empty, which included taking care of the land and the animals that inhabited it. And importantly, spoons were brought to the treaty table, not weapons, as a representation of keeping the peace. The wampum in the Dish with One Spoon wampum is a decorated belt which symbolized the agreement. It was, in effect, a record of the diplomatic agreement to ensure the memory of the agreement would be preserved. It currently resides in the Royal Ontario Museum. One of the core values of the Dish with One Spoon is that those who use the land should not abuse the land. In other words, individuals and groups should only take what they need from the land so that there will be a healthy, long-term, sustainable environment. And we look to the wisdom of the Indigenous peoples to assist us in the care and management of our earth, water, and air for future generations. Thanks, Emily.
Thank you. So, as I mentioned, this is in collaboration with the Energy and Environment Committee and Climate Momentum. Tonight, we are recording the webinar, and that recording will be posted on the city's website at stratford.ca/climate. If you require any alternative version of this material, please contact the city's clerk's office and they will provide it to you. We are on Zoom and we are also on Facebook. We have a really full agenda, so we're going to dive right into it. We have 4 speakers, and what I'll ask you to do is type any questions that you have into the Q&A box if you're on Zoom, or in the comment section underneath the Facebook event, and then we'll gather all the panelists at the end of the agenda to cover our Q&A. So without further ado, we are going to start with Kate Simpson, who has been with the City of Stratford for close to 20 years as its waste reduction coordinator. Prior to working in the City of Stratford, Kate was the compost facility manager and waste reduction coordinator for Green Lane Environmental Group. During her time with us here in Stratford, she has successfully implemented a textile diversion program, as well as most recently implemented a residential green bin program during the pandemic. Kate, over to you.
Thank you, Emily. I'm going to jump right into my presentation. Whoops, hold on. So thank you for that introduction. As Emily mentioned, I'm from the city of Stratford and I've been here almost 20 years. And I'm going to give a quick update on our waste management. So I'm going to do an overview of our services, talk about the green bin, and then our changes to the blue box, and then questions at the very end of all the presentations. So these are our diversion programs. As you can see, there's a number of them, from blue box collection down to electronic waste and metal, our shingle diversion, our textile diversion, concrete and asphalt, diversion programs at the landfill, and a really fun, unique one that many people participate in is the treasure hunt events. So this slide shows a summary of our waste. So you can see 28% of the total waste that we accept at the City of Stratford landfill is residentially generated waste. And the larger number, the 35%, is the commercial, and 19% being construction and demolition, and 18% being industrial. So this is a unique one because in 2020, obviously we had some challenges with the pandemic, and a lot of waste, I thought a lot of waste composition would have changed. I compared these numbers, these tonnages, to 2019 when things were a little more normal, and we still had the same percentages. So still had 28% residential and 35 approximately for commercial, and the industrial as well as the construction. That 0%, that shows our contaminated material. In 2020, we had less than 200 tons of contaminated waste, contaminated being hydrocarbon impacted soil, as well as asbestos that we do accept at the landfill. So these stats show our landfilled waste versus diverted waste. 53% of our materials that we handle is actually landfilled. So that shows approximately a 47% of the materials is diverted through the IC&I sector, as well as residential curbside. That 7% residential curbside, that accounts for our blue box program collected at the curbside, as well as the green bin and leaf and yard waste. The 37% of material diverted is from the IC&I sector. So I'm going to jump right into our green bin program. We implemented our green bin program right in the very start of the pandemic. That was April of 2020. And I was actually very, very pleased that council decided to go with, to still implement our green bin program, because we had been talking about it for so long, and I felt that like we had generated a lot of very positive energy about implementing the green bin program. So I was very happy that we weren't going to have to postpone it due to the pandemic. So we selected Stormfisher, who you'll be hearing from later in the presentation today. Stormfisher is a processor that's located in London, but they have a transfer station that's actually in Drumbo. And Stormfisher was selected based on location and price, as well as the accepted materials list. So to date, we have distributed a number of green bins. We have distributed to all single family households, 1 to 5 units. We've distributed to the business improvement area, the downtown core. That includes businesses as well as the apartments above if it's less than 6 units. There are over 60 businesses in the downtown core that are participating in the green bin program. And as of literally this week, another new business came aboard, and they're saying, well, you know what, we're up and running again, and we're able to participate in the green bin program. So that was pretty exciting. We've distributed some green bins to small commercial as interested, especially if they're part of the residential route. And we have some industrial sites on queue for collection. That includes the hospital and CR Plastics and Scotiabank. They have the green bins, and some of them are up and running and utilizing, which is very exciting. We have a couple of test pilots in the multi-residential sector. Test pilots being they have a number of green bins as well as kitchen catchers, and just figuring out a couple more logistics on that before we launch fully to all of the interested parties for the multi-residential. We've distributed to the private subdivisions and townhouses. Now, some of the private subdivisions, we don't currently collect any curbside programs from private subdivisions, being leaf and yard waste, garbage, or blue box. But with the green bin program, we were able to offer this level of service to the private subdivisions and private streets. But we did find that we had to do a local, like a community spot where you take all the green bins to. So we weren't sending trucks up and down the smaller streets. So this is a start of our list of acceptable materials. One thing I really want to point out on this very top list, you see cooking oil. One of the unique things about managing cooking oil is a lot of people don't want to put it in their green bin. It's especially if they're cleaning out a deep fat fryer, the cooking oil, it's going to be a larger quantity than just say your bacon grease. So with working with our collector as well as our processor, we've come up with a solution for the cooking oil. The cooking oil, the residents can put plastic containers filled with cooking oil on top of their green bin. And then our collection contractor will take that green bin, the container with oil and empty it right into the truck and then leave the plastic bin at the resident, like at the curbside with the green bin. And our processor obviously takes all of that material. This is another list of, an extended list of more materials. One unique one, especially in the past couple of weeks, is pumpkins. Pumpkins we always typically would accept in the leaf and yard waste program, or other programs were available where you could take pumpkins to a local farm and they would be eaten. But the pumpkins this year, you put it obviously in the green bin as well as the leaf and yard waste. We can divert many pumpkins that way. So this is our non-accepted list. All of this information is part of our promotion and education. It's posted on the website and in our calendars, that sort of thing. On here, we still don't take hot beverage cups in the green bin or in the blue box, but a unique one, dryer lint. We don't accept dryer lint in the green bin program. So what are some next steps the City of Stratford wants to do to help increase our diversion programs? We would like to move forward with a mattress diversion program. Mattresses typically don't weigh a lot, but they're bulky material. And so we're trying to implement a program that is cost effective to divert mattresses completely out of the landfill. One of my favorite ones is wood waste. I would love to see the City of Stratford implement a wood waste diversion program. Another one is a construction and demolition for mixed loads. We could secure a company that will accept drywall and porcelain, brick, concrete, shingles, all mixed together and still be diverted. And then another next step would be, we are moving towards a change in the blue box in the program as well as materials. So moving forward, this is something that's been going on for a number of years in the works for a producer. A producer is a company that makes or imports materials that end up in the blue box. And currently, they're responsible for funding 50% of the program costs. Now, in 2024, May 1st of 2024, the City of Stratford is going to be transitioning to the full producer responsibility. And this pictograph actually kind of describes it a bit better. So the shared industry funding, that's what we're currently doing. Producers fund 50% of the cost to collect and process the recyclable materials. And then moving towards a full producer responsibility, they'll be in charge of 100% of the cost for recycling the materials that they put into the marketplace. But with that, there's some tricky things. So there's eligible sources. Like right now, pre-transition, right now, we still collect from single-family homes and seasonal and multi-residential, as well as schools and retirement homes and public space. So we already collect from there, but we only get funded on the residential and multi-residential for the recycling. The post-transition, so a producer responsibility, will see all of those eligible sources being the single family homes, multi-residential, private and public schools, some specified retirement and long-term care homes, and some specified public spaces. So with the eligible sources, that does not include a number of places. So it does not include the funding of industrial or commercial properties, or our BIA, or churches, or commercial properties, even if they're along the residential routes. And it also doesn't include municipal buildings, so the arenas, City Hall even, and not-for-profit organizations. So that means they won't fund that. So council will have to make some decisions on, is this something that the City of Stratford will still offer moving forward for recycling, and at what cost basically will it be? So for our public spaces, this is just a quick snapshot on, it's a formula for what will be funded based on our population. And so Stratford will be eligible to have 50 recycle bins in the core in public spaces, so playgrounds and sidewalks and public transits. We'll be allowed to have a maximum of 50. So designated materials, pre-transition, so that's right now what we accept. We're told you have to implement a recycling program based on our population, any population over 5,000. You have to implement a recycling program for a certain number of materials. Post-transition, it's going to be province-wide what every municipality can collect and process. So people moving from different, from Kitchener even, as close as Kitchener is, they have a totally different recycling program than City of Stratford. So it's going to be across the board, very consistent, across the province. So there's still materials that will not ever be accepted in the blue box pre-transition, post-transition. And that includes hardcover books and pots and pans, tissue paper, paper towels. But side note, tissue paper and Kleenexes and paper towels, we can put those in the green bin program. And obviously hazardous waste does not need to be in the blue box, and it never should be. So I threw a lot of information at you. We are taking questions at the end of our presentation, but by all means, I'm always open to comments and questions. Send me an email. You can see my email address there. You can also contact me through the city with the city's phone number, as well as on the website. It's my contact information. So thank you.
Sorry, Kate, your last couple slides weren't up. So can you just put up, just keep sharing your screen, maybe put up the last one with your contact info?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Can you see it?
Not yet.
Hold on.
But we can also share your contact info in the, well, we have it on the, oh, there we go. There we go. Yep. Okay, so you're fine there. There's your email. And can you just do the last slide before that?
Of course. So these are materials that we still don't accept. Just examples. of like hazardous waste and dishes and pots and pans. We still don't accept it. And moving forward to a full producer responsibility program, they still won't accept them either.
Okay. Got it. I didn't know that about the containers of cooking oil. That's
Yes.
amazing.
Yes.
Okay, so I've learned something tonight about our green bin. Thank you. And as we said, we will be having questions at the end of everyone's presentation. So next we're going to be hearing from Frances Valliere, who is the president of the Blue Water Recycling Association in Ontario. Frances is responsible for managing the BRA's solid waste management system, which includes its own collection fleet, a material recovery facility, e-waste collection, and environmental education programs. The BRA is a rural-based nonprofit organization developing and maintaining facilities on behalf of and in cooperation with the municipal sector. They are essentially a municipal co-op acting as the solid waste department for their member municipalities. And a few numbers for you. The BRA services approximately 184,000 people in 89,000 households from 22 municipalities with its state-of-the-art material recovery facility and fleet of clean burning natural gas automated collection vehicles. And the BRA, I learned, has won multiple awards, including being the only operator in the province to receive the Recycling Council of Ontario Waste Minimization Award, Outstanding Recycling Program Operator, or receiving an honorable mention 9 times. And I feel like that is a lot of words to fit on a trophy that you've won 9 times. So Frances, I will turn it to you, and I believe we're starting with a video.
We're going to go there just after.
Okay,
Right.
over to you.
Well, thank you for the introduction. I think we're out of time now, so let's move on. No, it's my pleasure to be here tonight. The association, to those who are listening from the city of Stratford, that we essentially provide the processing services for your community. So all your recyclable material, your blue box materials all come to our facility, we process it, and then send it out to end markets. I guess part of the program tonight, you were looking for kind of an overview of the program. I can tell you that we've been processing your material since 2012. The city has been fairly consistent in the amount of material that brings to us. It's been bringing about 2,400 tons a year of recyclables to our facility. And but over that period of time, we've seen a decline in the amount of materials coming to us. The last full year, 2020, we're actually down to just below 2,000, about 1,953 tons or so. Part of that certainly due to COVID, but then again, if you look at 2019 before that, it was 1,966 tons. So it's not that far off. So you're about 82% of what you used to send us. And but before everybody panics and freaks out about, we're not doing what we should be doing, or you're right in line with what's happening across the province. The province peaked around the same time, around the mid 2010s or so. And ever since then, the amount of material getting recycled is going down. And it's not because people are doing less. It's simply a case where there's a lot of other things happening, like light weighing, for example, where the walls of certain products was a lot thicker, and as a result, it weighed more before. Now they're a lot thinner, they weigh less. So you still have a bottle that you're recycling, but it weighs half the weight that it used to weigh. So that makes a difference in the overall material that we get to see recycling. There's a shift towards more films and laminates and pouches, which is also facilitating that. We're also seeing the death of the newspaper for the most part, where there's less and less newspapers happening out there. And we're seeing more cardboard from the Amazon effect and more PET containers from everything switching from bottles to trays and stuff like that. So overall, I mean, you're just in line with everybody else. You're doing a good job. You're doing a fine job, and it's consistent with the rest of the province. You wanted to know where the material goes. I can tell you that over 90% of our material that we sell, we try to maintain and sell them locally, and we do this on purpose. And it's not we of course value price, and we want to try to generate as much as possible for the material to try to reduce costs as much as possible. But we believe in the concept of a circular economy, and that means trying to take the material, redevelop it locally, keep the money in the local economy, and so we have an idea what's actually going on with the material as well, and it's not going to some faraway country that we don't know what happens with the material. So to give you some examples, all your plastics right now are going to a facility either in Listowel or in Feversham here in Ontario, and turn right back into what they came in with, is a bottle or other similar products. Glass is all going to Guelph. Newsprint is typically going to Brantford. Steel is typically going to Hamilton. A lot of our cardboard and mixed paper will end up in Whitby or other places here in Ontario or just across the border in Michigan. The only material that kind of really leaves the areas is aluminum, and that's just because there's no local facilities for aluminum. So closest spot would be Montreal sometimes, but most of the times it goes to the US, either Kentucky or New York. So we can say that 100% of our material stays domestic. So there's no export that goes on from our facility, and 90% of it is essentially virtually local. You want to know how you were doing with plastics. I can tell you that number 1, number 2, and number 5, we receive them. We can recycle those all day long. There's very strong markets for all 3 of those products. No problems at all. Number 3 and 6 are essentially being phased out right now. So it's not worth much talking about. Number 4, which is primarily film products like bags. We are collecting them right now, but I can honestly tell you that we're not able to recover any of those because they're just too dirty at this point. We can't, there's too much paper and other contaminants in it that comes with the material that the processor can't handle them at this point. So we're working on trying to modify processes to do that, but it's a work in progress. And then number 7 are typically multi-layer products, and they pretty much require chemical recycling, which is in development, but not online at this point. So unless you wanted to know about upcoming development, and for that, I'm going to rely on a pre-recorded presentation that we're going to play for you, and I'll be back to answer Q&A after that. So definitely, if you want to launch a presentation about waste cycling, I would greatly appreciate it.
Hello, and welcome to this presentation about waste cycling. My name is Francis Valliere, and I'm the president of the Blue Water Recycling Association. I've had the pleasure to serve you for the last 32 years, but tonight I want to talk to you about something where I need your help. Waste cycling, or aspirational recycling, happens when you put something in the recycling bin without knowing if it's actually recyclable. Or sometimes people actually think it's ought to be recyclable, so they put it in anyway. 59% of people believe that most items can be recycled, which is simply not true, which means that over half the people are wish cycling regularly. Now, it's no wonder that people wish cycle all the time. I mean, you're being bombarded with recycling symbols everywhere, and most of those are actually unregulated. That means the manufacturers or those who printed them on the packaging or boxes that you're using are using it without any regulation, and their purpose can be totally true or totally invalid. Sometimes the symbols simply mean that the packaging or the material has recycled content in it. Sometimes it means that it is recyclable. Sometimes it just means it identifies the types of plastic or material that it's made of. It can mean a whole slew of different things. Unfortunately, most people associate this recycling symbol as something that means it's accepted in the recycling blue box program, and that's simply not true. I need you to remember that next time you buy something and when you're looking at it to see whether it's recyclable or not. Your local blue box program, or currently collected at wheelie bins everywhere, is really designed for printed papers and packaging only. And this means, in general categories, some papers, some boxes, some cans, some plastics, and some glass. We'll look at those individually and go over what is actually recyclable and what's not. So when we talk about paper, we don't mean anything made of paper. We mean specifically newspapers, magazines, junk mail, box board like your cereal boxes, cardboard, which is typically brown with the wavy layers in the middle, flyers, paper egg trays, the actual paper towel rolls, or shredded paper if it's bagged. Now, it's just, these are the items that we can accept. We don't want your medical mask, your wrapping paper, your jigsaw puzzles, your tissue paper, or used paper towels, or even your coffee cups. Those are not recyclable. They're not accepted in our recycling program, and we shouldn't find any of them in your wheelie bin. When it comes to metal, what we're looking for is steel beverage and food cans or aluminum beverage cans only. All metal lids are also acceptable. Now, that doesn't mean anything made of metal, like you don't want your lawn chair, we don't want your ammunition, we don't want your old bicycle, we don't want your chainsaw, we don't want your baking ware, your old favorite fishing lure, your propane tank, saw blades, or your boat anchor. Those cause a tremendous amount of damage to our equipment. We're not equipped to handle that. We don't expect to see them in our pile. And when they come through the equipment, they shred our conveyor belts, they damage our optical computers, and they cost thousands of dollars in damage when they go through. Glass, we need glass bottles and jars. That's it. We're not looking for anything else. We're not looking for your window pane or your drinking glass or any ceramic goods or any mirrors or drinking glasses or anything like that. Simply bottles and jars. When it comes to plastic, well, it seems like everything in the world is made of plastic these days. And at one point, the industry tried to make it easier to identify which types of plastics by agreeing to print a recycling loop or a Mobius loop on the packaging with a number in it. And that number simply identifies what type of plastic it's made of. It doesn't mean it's recyclable at all. It just tries to help any producers or recycler to see how to handle the particular types of plastic. In our case here, we will accept any bottles and jars, tubs and lids, any blister packaging or that you may receive some of your products in. Realistically, number 1, number 2, and number 5 plastics are PET, HDPE, and polypropylene. Those have existing markets. We can market those worldwide, not a problem at all day long. The rest of them, the 3s and the 6 and the 7s, there's really no existing markets for them. They're used as a filler in other products. Markets come and go. They're very low quality materials, and nobody really wants those. It's just the 1, 2s, and 5s. But again, it's just bottles, jars, tubs, and lids, and some packaging that you will find coming to your home. That means we don't want other things that are made of plastic or that you may think are made of plastic, like your old lawn chair or your Christmas lights, your boat wrap, or your solar blanket, your needles, or ropes, or VHS tapes, ink cartridges, your vacuum cleaner, or your bowling ball. None of those are acceptable in the Blue Box program, and we don't want to see them. So please stop sending us your trash and just send us the recyclables, and things will be much easier. So we don't want just anything that's made of paper, metal, plastic, and glass. I mean, we sometimes even find some wood in there. And I don't know whether people think that, paper is made out of wood, they must be able to recycle it. We can't. It doesn't go through our facility, and it causes damage and slows everything down and actually contaminates other products. So please don't give us those. Don't give us long stringy things or your needles or anything hazardous or any organic material. That would be great. If you do your part, recycling is smart, and we all do our part. And I'll give you an example of that. One of the material that we collect is number 2 HDPE bottles. And when we collect those, we bring them back to our facility in Huron Park, where we separate them all, make a bale, and then market them. In our particular case, over the last year, we've collected over 1 million pounds of those containers and sent them to a company called EFS Plastics, located in Listowel within our own territory here. EFS breaks those bales, shreds the material, removes any leftover material that might be inside, your leftover soap and peanut butter or whatever else. They'll likely remove the paper labels. A lot of times the caps are also a different plastic. They'll remove those. And they make a new plastic pellet that's usable to make any new products. And they turn around and send it right back to companies next door to us, like Exiplast and Blue Water Pipe, where they make new products. Exiplast makes traffic cones out of those, and Blue Water Pipe makes the corrugated pipes that you see in the farmer's field all over the place that are used for about 50 years. Those 1 million pounds of material that have gone through EFS and gone back to Blue Water Pipe have created over 6 million feet of corrugated pipe in the last 14 months or so. So that's an example where we have the circular economy model right here in our backyard, where nothing's going to landfill. We bring it back here, get it fully recycled, and goes right back into a usable product. And that's when recycling works, when you give us what we need. So keep in mind, when in doubt, leave it out and stop wish cycling. Thank you.
Thanks, Francis. So obviously keep in mind, if you're using the plastic, keep in mind that 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, and 5 are best. And I like that saying, if in doubt, leave it out and stop wish cycling. Maybe some of you have first learned that term tonight. Okay, so next we have Chris Guillen from Stormfisher. He is VP Finance and has extensive experience in the commercialization and financing of innovative clean technologies. Chris is one of the co-founders of Stormfisher, which is a North American pioneer in biogas, where he has spearheaded the financing and commercial activities of the company from its inception. Stormfisher develops and operates facilities that recycle food, waste, energy, and water in an environmentally and economically sustainable manner. The Stormfisher facility in London, Ontario, is an anaerobic digestion plant that converts organic waste into both renewable electricity and renewable natural gas. The digested organics are then used to produce an organic-based granule fertilizer and liquid fertilizer. This facility processes over 100,000 metric tons into 2.85 megawatts of electricity and 225,000 gigajoules of renewable natural gas. And Chris, I'll turn it to you. I really hope I got the that acronym right. I had to
got it all perfectly.
Yeah, okay.
Awesome.
I was like, I don't know that acronym. Over to you.
Thanks a lot, Emily. Okay, let's see. Great. So first off, I appreciate the invitation from the committee to share with you tonight what we do here at Stormfisher and the benefits of the green bin program Stratford has rolled out, as well as other municipalities in Ontario. There we go. So the process we use here at Stormfisher is called anaerobic digestion. What that means is it's a biological process. It's from Mother Nature. It's the exact same process that goes on in a cow's stomach, where basically microbes and bacteria convert agricultural byproducts. It could be manure or food waste from food processors or grocery stores, or in the case of Stratford, from the curbside green bin program. And that food waste is converted naturally, a natural organic process, into biogas, which is a mixture of methane and carbon dioxide, as well as creates a nutrient-rich product that we use as a fertilizer. This process happens in an anaerobic environment, which means without oxygen, as compared to a compost, which is an aerobic process where you put air through the organic material to aid in its degradation. The bacteria in the biogas system like working and only work in an environment without oxygen. This is kind of an overall kind of schematic of a biogas system, a little bit dry, but basically you have your inputs. It could be organic material from farms, manure, dairy manure, or swine manure, or organic material from food processors, institutions such as nursing homes, or distribution centers, or curbside organic collection programs. All goes to the anaerobic digestion facility. And there, the carbohydrates, the proteins, the fats that are in the food waste are converted by the anaerobic bacteria into biogas. And biogas, I was mentioning, is a mixture of methane and carbon dioxide. And methane is essentially natural gas, the same chemical component in natural gas. And natural gas, you can use it to combust to make electricity. So you can burn the biogas to make electricity. And as Emily was mentioning, we make 2.85 megawatts of electricity at our facility, or it can be purified to make renewable natural gas and injected in the pipeline. And in addition to that, all the nutrients that are left over can be used to go back to the agricultural community or horticulture to back to the circular economy to grow additional crops for food production. As Kate was talking about at the introduction, we have a facility in Drumbo, Ontario. That's between Woodstock and Kitchener on the 401, and that facility is designed to receive the collected organics from curbside collection programs for municipalities. And at this facility, it's processed to remove any contamination that is found in there to create a cleaner organic material. This is kind of a schematic of the facility, and I'll scroll to a picture of the facility. It's an indoor facility. All the material that we receive is processed indoors. A lot of times when we give tours to visitors, they're expecting to see a pile of organics in a field and seagulls flying around. In vast majority of organic processing facilities here in Ontario, it's done in indoor environments, so keep nuisances away. And this facility in Drumbo processes around 100,000 tons of food waste a year and has a very sophisticated odor abatement system to keep nuisance odors down. Here's a shot of the indoor facility. This facility came online in December. So the trucks on the picture on the right-hand side, the trucks come in from the municipalities. In the case of Stratford, it's the actual curbside collection trucks. They dump their waste on a tipping floor. That helps us to find any large contamination, and then the material is loaded into a processing system to remove any plastic, metal, or glass contamination. And what comes out of our Drumbo facility is what we call an engineered organic feedstock. It's decontaminated food waste that then goes to our London facility for energy production. Now, a little bit of a show and tell here. When most people see pictograms of a green bin program, they see pictures like this, where it's like, basically food going into a green bin program. The picture on the bottom left is it looks like a full salad being thrown away, whereas you see other shots, it looks like fresh food. Reality is different, very similar to Francis's presentation. You can have material from municipalities that looks like this. You see on the top left-hand side, you see either plastic or bags that are the containers are in totally fine to do that. Those are thin film compostable bags. You can see some spoiled bakery products. Then on the one on the bottom, you see some box board with a picture of a pizza container. And on the right, you see some higher levels of contamination with some plastic bags. But it can get worse than that. So you have material such as this. This would be material from municipality that allows the residents to use plastic bags. Stratford is forward thinking and prohibits the use of plastic bags, but some do get in. Even if it's restricted, you do get the odd plastic bag. And so you need to deal with that material, remove the contamination that's found there. And it can get worse than this. This is a picture from actual municipality here in Ontario, where you'll get the odd car tire on the left-hand side. You'll get branches and sticks and wood from construction. You'll get plastic containers. You'll see, I think this is like a Ziggy's potato salad container. All of that somewhat analogous to what Francis was saying, somewhat wish cycling. So I have a container of spoiled potato salad. I'm not going to scoop it out into the green bin. I'll just throw the whole thing in the green bin. And we need to deal with that. We need to essentially expect that material and remove it because it's a contamination and would harm our biogas facility. What you see over here, diapers. Stratford does not allow diapers, but they do occasionally get in, we need to remove diapers from the organic material because it's viewed as contamination. Now we get a lot of questions about how does Stormfisher and other organic waste processing facilities remove this contamination. And we don't have optical eyes like Francis has. Vast majority of organic waste processing facilities use physical separation to screen out plastic, metal, glass from food waste. And food waste, if anyone's ever had a smoothie, and most of on this presentation had, it can liquefy, whereas contamination does not. And so most contamination removal systems use physical screens of varying sizes to remove the contamination from the food waste. You see on the top right-hand side is a picture of a contamination processing system where the food waste is basically pulverized with a set of paddles and gets liquefied into a smoothie and goes through the screens, whereas the contamination gets caught and trapped in the screens and is sent for residual disposal. So that's the nitty-gritty of our Drumbo facility, and I'll switch into some fun stuff now. So once all that happens in Drumbo, the material gets trucked to our facility in London, Ontario, and there I'll say the magic happens. That's where the anaerobic digestion process takes place, and its sole purpose is, very much dictated by the circular economy principles. We try to maximize as much as we can the value of that food waste. So squeeze the energy out of it in the form of anaerobic digestion, and then use the nutrients to make a fertilizer. It looks like a refinery, but essentially mirrors what goes on, as I was mentioning, into a cow's stomach. So I'll follow the bouncing ball here. Basically, the yellow dot is where all the material comes in from Drumbo, gets received indoors, and if there's any broken glass or grit that is found in the material, gets removed here. Call it a final polishing. Then it moves to the storage tanks. It's a continuous processing system. So just like a cow gets fed every day and produces energy every day, but we receive material basically during working hours. So you have storage tanks to store the incoming food waste. And those two large tanks you see at the back are the anaerobic digesters, basically sealed tanks that the anaerobic bacteria live in and convert the food waste into biogas and the fertilizer. And the mushroom cap dome, the tank with the white dome, collects the biogas that's produced by the anaerobic digestion process. And then we have a whole energy recovery system producing electricity and renewable natural gas. And then finally, all the nutrients that are left over are converted into a Canadian Food Inspection Agency approved fertilizer. What I'll say we're very proud about is promoting the circular economy concept. So the renewable natural gas that we produce at our site in London goes into the Union Gas and Enbridge natural gas pipeline, and it can go basically anywhere where natural gas is used. And we struck up a partnership with the city of Hamilton. They have CNG powered buses, and the buses are fueled by one or two of them, I believe, are fueled by our renewable natural gas. And it seems very esoteric, but trying to give kind of some context to it. This bus has traveled about 45,000 kilometers, and we has basically been fueled by the contents of around 20,000 green bins. And we try to practice what we preach, and we move the organic waste between our Drumbo and London facility using a CNG powered truck you see on the bottom right-hand side. Overall, the amount of renewable natural gas we produce is the equivalent of 6 million liters of diesel per year. So that's offsetting 6 million liters of fossil fuel-based diesel per year. And that's all from Ontario's Green Bin program. And it very much, the waste management sector very much embraces this circular economy concept. So you get the green bin waste that's collected, for example, by the city of Stratford, goes to our facility conversion into RNG. There's a large variety of CNG, RNG fueling stations in Ontario. And a lot of the time it goes back to power the waste collection vehicles that pick up green bin material. In addition to energy, we capture all the nutrients, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that remains in the food waste and convert it either into a liquid or solid-based granular fertilizer. And that's basically the circle of life for organic food waste. Again, my contact information is there. Happy to chat with anyone. Also happy to facilitate tours if any members of the committee or residents of Stratford would like that. And again, want to thank the committee for the opportunity to present what we do here at Stormfisher. Emily, I believe you're on mute.
There we go. Thank you. Now it's a Zoom meeting. I was just saying that we were able to tour the site a couple years ago as part of the committee, and it was fascinating to see what's actually there getting sorted at the London location. So thank you, Chris. And we've got lots of questions coming in as a result of your presentation. Okay. Last but not least is Sammy. Sammy Orr is a grade 11 student at the Stratford District Secondary School and is an active member of its Eco Club. She's a strong advocate for care of the environment and our ecosystems. She's also the youth representative on our Energy and Environment Committee. And several months ago, Sammy, along with a group of concerned citizens, decided to do something about the increase in takeout container waste happening in the city of Stratford. Since that time, this group has been working with Valliere, which is a reusable container company, to bring more sustainable takeout options to our local restaurants. The group is hoping to expand their mission to decrease the amount of waste going to the landfill and to involve other businesses and institutions in the community in developing more sustainable practices. Sammy.
Hi, thank you. I'm just gonna share my screen. Can you guys see it all right? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. So like Emily said, my name is Sammy Orr, and today I'll be talking about a project that has been ongoing to reduce the amount of takeout waste. So this is a collaboration between a group of citizens who eventually formed the Industrial, Commercial, and Institutional Waste Reduction Committee, as well as our local Stratford restaurants and Valliere, a reusable container company. In the beginning, how this kind of began was we saw some articles and posts on social media talking about reusable container programs in other places around our country and the world. And we thought, hey, this is something Stratford could do. As well, the Alfresco program in 2020 highlighted some need for a better waste disposal system with many issues referring to overflow of waste in the downtown core. As well, with the pandemic, we saw a huge uptake in the amount of takeout waste since restaurants couldn't dine in anymore. Of course, we wanted to support and we wanted to use takeout, but it came along with some feelings of guilt just because we didn't want to be producing so much excess waste. As well, when we started researching into this and kind of looking into more sustainable takeout, we kind of realized that restaurants in Stratford were already thinking about sustainability and they were already working on their own sustainable projects before the pandemic as well as during the pandemic. And finally, all the way from the beginning, we did have some concerns about the restaurant's capacity to kind of change to a more sustainable future and a more sustainable option, as well as costs regarding that. So our first step in this process was to, of course, identify our strategic partners and to learn more about the current situation and current issues. Of course, one of the most important stakeholders in this discussion was, of course, our local restaurants. So, of course, they had a huge part in all steps of the way. But as you can see, there were many other groups we wanted to include, ranging from the health unit to city staff to the BIA to Blue Water Recycling and Stormfisher here today. So we first called a public meeting together so that we could assess the current situation and some challenges that restaurants were currently facing. Once we kind of called that meeting together, we wanted to determine the interests of our restaurants, as well as what they wanted to see in regards to sustainability and what they would be interested in. After we kind of discussed with them and decided what they would like, our working group wanted to take on the workload of doing that research so that they had no additional stress or workload. In the end, 25 people attended this public meeting and 10 of us formed a working group. That working group moved on to look at some sustainable options, including reusables or compostables, as well as providing better composting and recycling information to the community, as well as waste collection in the downtown core. And finally, to kind of collect some data about our current challenges and options. So our big why for this project. Although it's sometimes difficult to see the ties between climate change and waste, they are very closely intertwined. And with Stratford declaring a climate emergency in February of 2020, it was very clear that our community needed to take action to reduce our emissions. And a sector that we, the citizens in this project, believed we could address was waste reduction. And in October 2021, so not too long ago, the greenhouse gas reduction plan was presented to City Council, and it was very clearly highlighted that a reduction of emissions from the waste sector was needed. It shared that 14% of Stratford's emissions did come from waste. So again, it was clear that waste is highly related to the climate emergency. As well, from March 2021 to the present day, we could physically see a huge need for waste reduction. So our goals throughout this entire project, of course, our main goal was to engage restaurateurs in every step of this. They are a huge, important part since it is their sector. As well, we wanted to promote what restaurants were already doing before we had come along. Because again, like I've said, restaurants already had sustainability on their minds and they were already taking action to reduce their waste. For example, Revel, they use compostable cups, as well they have a basket delivery system, which uses all reusables. As well, we understood that one size doesn't fit all, meaning that for one restaurant, a reusable container company would work, but for another, it might not, and that's okay. And of course, we wanted to reduce the amount of takeout waste, but we wanted to make sure that this reduction didn't add any more stress to our restaurants, as they were definitely experiencing enough stress with the pandemic. Some of our successes to date include connecting with Friendlier, the reusable container company, and kind of making a tie between them and our restaurants in town so that they could discuss and figure out a potential collaboration. As well, we completed a survey with the BIA to figure out what restaurants, what kind of containers they were currently using, so to kind of use this as a baseline. We also did some research into other sustainable options, including other reusables as well as compostables. We worked and are working with the Alfresco program and City of Stratford to figure out a way to increase waste management in the downtown core. And finally, we're working on educating the public on how to recycle and compost properly, one way through this webinar, as well through other methods such as articles and social media. So the restaurants that you can currently order from in Stratford, and they will come in a reusable container, include Mercer and York Street Kitchen, Cafe Buffon and Pazos, The Pulp, Grounded, Stratford Country Club, and Keystone Hospitality, which include the Bry House, Alley, Birch and Wynn, and Brew Garden. So we reached out to Friendlier to kind of ask them to see if they had any stats regarding Stratford's impact. And they came back with some really amazing information. And they shared with us that from the beginning that Stratford started using this program, which was about in May to September, Stratford reused 20,000 containers. That's amazing. All of that had been diverted from landfill, which is approximately 1,600 kilograms of CO2 emissions, which is amazing to see the impact we've had. So of course, waste management and waste reduction is an ongoing initiative, an ongoing project. So of course, this group has some plans on the horizon. This includes researching into coffee cups and lids, as well as promoting all of the sustainable options in Stratford for takeout. And finally, we're hoping to look into reducing waste in other sectors and for other businesses. And before I finish off, some things that you can do as a citizen in Stratford are, of course, or not just in Stratford, anywhere, ask your favorite restaurant about sustainability. Ask what they're doing, if it's on their mind, and if not, maybe encourage them to check out some more sustainable options. As well, promoting social media posts and articles about sustainable options and takeout options in your community. And we, of course, encourage you to use a reusable mug or cup. Hopefully, we're starting to see that come back. Of course, with the pandemic, some places aren't accepting those, but as they come back, for sure, start to use them. And of course, join a climate action group in your community in Stratford. That can be Get Concerned or Perth County Sustainability Hub or Climate Momentum. As well, please share this recording of this presentation with your friends and family so that other people can learn about how to properly compost and recycle. And finally, we encourage you to check out the Recycle Coach, which is an app that makes recycling and composting in Stratford super easy and simple. And for sure, go check it out. And thank you for having me. And there's some great accounts we encourage you to check out on the right-hand side. And again, feel free to ask any questions. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Sammy. That's pretty huge. 20,000 containers you've diverted from the landfill. That's amazing. And it'll only grow. Okay, so now we're moving into the Q&A period. So I would like to ask all of our guest speakers to turn their cameras back on. And I think what makes the most sense, we have lots of questions coming in. What I'm going to try to do is group them together where they've been asked to a specific person. And Kate, I'm going to start with you because you have a few. Okay, so bear with me as I cycle through these. So for starters, and Chris may have to weigh in on this also, but Jody's asking, how can we tell if containers labeled as compostable are acceptable in our green bin program?
So I'll take a stab at that one. It's tricky because even if something is labeled as compostable or organic, it doesn't mean that it's accepted. you have to get down to finding out if it would go through our process, as Chris described. The compostable plastic film, like the compostable plastic film, compostable bags, absolutely. It has a label on it, and that is accepted. You can line your materials, line your green bin or your kitchen catcher, don't double bag, and that has that label on it. That is accepted. But a coffee or a hot beverage cup that, even though it says compostable or biodegradable, doesn't mean that it's accepted in our program. So my quick reference would be, go to the city's website. Is it on the list for accepted materials? If it's on like a paper plate, even though it doesn't have a compostable symbol on it, it is accepted in the green bin program, especially if it's food contaminated. But refer back to the do's and don'ts in our promotion and education on our website. I'll pass it along to Chris. He has probably a very more eloquent way of saying it.
Yeah, which I can say there's a clear-cut yes and no, and very similar to Francis. You know, Francis does metal recycling, but he doesn't want a boat anchor in his facility. But that's metal. Very similar to that in our facility for food waste. We encourage, you know, for the city of Stratford, to the kitchen catchers and the green bins, for residents to use it, they need to, you know, collect the food waste, and the compostable and bags that you can find at most, you know, Home Hardware, Canadian Tire, Lowe's, Home Depot are entirely suitable for us. They are acceptable. Plastic bags from the No Frills or the you know, grocery store, even if they say compostable or biodegradable, they wouldn't be accepted. It's the specific green bin, you know, liner and kitchen catcher bags that you can purchase at retail stores that are suitable for us.
Okay. Kate, would you say the city's website as well as the Recycling Coach app equally up to date in terms of what's accepted in the city?
I would hope so. I can definitely go through the Recycle Coach app again to really specify the compostable materials in there. Absolutely. I'll add it to my to-do list.
Okay, thanks. Okay, another question for you, Kate. Would it be possible to implement a green bin program for public schools here in Stratford?
Absolutely. So I do have, with Sammy's help, her school is on, but they're using all of the organic material into their compost cow. But St. Joe's is going to, they just contact me and said that they would like to participate. And so there's still a couple of logistics that we need to iron out. That's on our end. How many green bins is the city prepared to distribute to each commercial business, multi-residential, as well as schools? Right now it's set at 2. We'll deliver 2, but would that increase for schools? Are we prepared to implement containers, or sorry, not implement, but like deliver containers, the kitchen catchers, to each classroom? So those are answers that I don't have yet. But what I'm doing with one of the schools, the St. Joe's, is that they've asked for the minimum requirements that they know that I can provide, which is 2 green bins, and I'm going to give them 2 kitchen catchers, and they're going to try in, I have a very eager teacher, and she said, I'm just going to try it in the whatever grades. And then down the road, when we have more answers and more bins, and when I can get into the schools and actually talk to the classrooms and do some sort of a education program to interact with schools again. Totally miss that. I miss being able to be physically there to say, hey, this is how you do it. This is the ins and the outs, that sort of thing, as well as talk to staff about it as well. It's not just the students, it's the staff, and it's the staff that have to be able to take ownership on the implementing the program. So if there's a school out there other than St. Joe's that's getting the green bins next week, that's interested to try it out with just those parameters, I would be more than happy to accommodate. Absolutely. Send me an email, ksimpson@stratford.ca.
Okay, amazing. Do you have a target date for rolling out green bin program to multi-res buildings? That must be 6 units and more.
I have a couple that are already on, and they're doing. We're doing the collection. One is an 18 or 18 or 20 unit building. Where I'm still working on the number of green bins per building for units. For example, 1 green bin for 5 units, so to speak, and also securing some details on sometimes. Tenants, absolutely. You get someone in there that is super keen to have the green bin program, but then it turns out that the landlord is not. So we need to go through the right channels for permission. Basically, do you want this green bin program? As well as just waiting on some answers on, once again, number of bins, what our capacity is. Like how many we have. I know how many we have, but how many can we provide to make it financially viable for all classes? So in a roundabout way, that was a really long way of saying it depends. No, I am always open to trying, especially things on pilots. If there's an interested multi-res building that we have the right permissions, absolutely. Let's get you on board. Let's get working on this and moving forward. So please email me.
So gather kind of that approval and enthusiasm and approach you with a plan to be a pilot.
I also have a lot of information already for buildings that have said hard pass no. So I can check that reference. And also I have some that have said, yeah, maybe. So okay. I have reached out to a lot of property owners as well as supers to say, what's your level of interest? And I've gone with the ones, especially for the pilots, that are excited to participate in the program.
Yeah, they're your guinea pigs.
I love guinea pigs.
Okay, Francis, we have multiple people. I'm just checking the Zoom and my text questions, but multiple people have asked, should lids be on our glass containers or put into the blue bin separately? Same question for plastic containers and tubs. Should lids stay on the containers?
That's a very good question. And I have probably a varied answer for you there. On glass containers, especially if it's a metal lid, it's preferred that you remove it. But I must tell you right off the bat, on any containers, if the lid is attached and the lid and the label are considered part of the container, they're not really considered contaminants. So you can leave them attached if you want. But if you want to know the truth as far as the process and everything else, for glass, if they remove the lid, usually they're metal, we will actually recover the lid separately and be able to sell it as metal, and recover the glass jar separately and sell it as glass. And our glass buyer will be much happier because they won't have to deal with the lid. If the lid is plastic and it's smaller than 3 inches, I'll be honest with you, it's going to end up in the garbage over here because there's just no physical way for us to really recover it there. And if anything, it has a chance of contaminating the glass. On a plastic container, it's just, that one there is your best bet is probably to leave it on if you want to have any chance of getting recycled, because most of the time they will be smaller than 3 inches. If you leave it on, the people that we sell the material to, they will recover it and usually be able to make something good out of it. Otherwise, it's going to slip through just as a small item through our process, and it's going to end up in residue.
And of course, those things, clean them out before you put them in your bin, right?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, if you have a liquid, like a juice container or something, if it's empty, that's fine. It's good enough. If you have a peanut butter jar, probably should try to clean it a little bit before you send it to us. It'd be better. It would help with contamination.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. One more question for you. Is your wish cycling video, is that available on your website?
It's not. Yeah, it's not currently posted as a separate video. It was just recently made. I know one of our member municipality did post it. It's available publicly. I know tonight you're recording the presentation, but you're probably posting it as a whole, not different segments, right? Yeah. I'll see about getting it on our website as a separate video that you can download. You'll find it under probably resources or publications in our website.
Someone wants to share it with their neighbors.
Oh, that's
Which
good.
I feel like
Please go
that could be an
viral.
interesting dynamic depending on the neighbor.
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully that will get posted. We have a comment that composting should not be optional, that mandatory green bins or increase the price of garbage tags. I have to agree. I have to agree. Okay. There's a question, I'm not sure who would like to try to answer it, but what's happening with all the PPE and medical supplies that's being used during the pandemic? I know I've seen some, I think it was Sammy's high school that is collecting used single-use masks, but at the hospital, I assume that's all going into the garbage, no recovery program there. Kate, do you know?
I do know of like TerraCycle has, I think that's what Sammy's using. You do pay for a bin, and the single-use masks do get recycled. But everything comes at a cost. So you do have to play that into the financial aspect of it. As for the city of Stratford, no, we don't encourage that you add medical waste or sorry, not medical, face masks to the blue box or the green bin. Double bag it, put it in the garbage. Especially in the height of COVID, we asked people to double bag Kleenexes, keep them out of the green bin. Until we were all educated a lot more on the COVID restrictions. But as of right now, no, we do not have a diversion program for that.
Okay. Thank you.
I can talk to our high school at Stratford District. We do have collection bins for PPE waste. They're provided by Green Circle Salons, or Green Circle, you can check the name. Yes, Green Circle Salons. And it's mostly reusable or disposable masks, and it's taken and turned into asphalt, which is cool.
Wow.
That's excellent. Thanks, Sammy.
The Stratford Library actually has a collection spot as well for masks, and I think it's TerraCycle. Okay, Chris, you touched a little bit on your RNG powered vehicles and some of the stats that you had about GHG emissions being reduced.
Mhm.
And we've had a couple questions about, and I'm not sure if you'll have the specific answer, but basically trying to weigh the emissions that are created from your trucks, going door to door collecting green bin versus what we are generating at the Storm Fisher facility. So do you know anything in terms of the trade-off there or the benefit?
I can kind of cover it on a high level.
Yeah.
So, and try to make it as simple as possible. What's very interesting about the biogas process and the anaerobic digestion of food waste is the RNG that's produced is carbon negative. We talk a lot about getting to carbon neutral, which means we don't produce more carbon than we don't generate additional carbon into the atmosphere. RNG, because methane that would have been released from food waste if it went to landfill, is an extremely potent greenhouse gas. It's 40 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So by sending the food waste to an anaerobic digester, you're preventing that release of methane at a landfill. And so the RNG that is produced is actually carbon negative. It's essentially using it is better than not doing anything. It's reducing carbon emissions below zero. So there's a we work very hard, as well as other RNG producers, to assess it's called carbon intensity, how negative the RNG is. And so the vast majority of RNG, ours included, is carbon negative. And so it's below zero in its benefit. It actually helps reduce reductions further than just going net neutral.
Amazing, thank you. There are questions. Kate, can you just speak just briefly about how long and what goes into when you renew our recycling contracts? So people are asking, like, can we have different bins, or they like the bins that a different city uses, or I've seen online people comparing what's recyclable here versus there. Can you just super high level just kind of fill us in on what goes into those decisions?
Oh, absolutely. We go out to tender for first to secure a processor. So that's Francis, where we take our material. And Francis like with Blue Water is able to say, we can accept this number of materials and this is how we would like it, like not in bags, that sort of thing. So we then take that information and go out to a collection tender, and then basically let our collectors know this is how we want to collect our material. We get pricing based on how much, or the frequency of collection. So weekly, bi-weekly, and give us costs, basically. It all comes down to the amount of money that the city of Stratford is prepared to put towards the different levels of service. So as you, if you recall from my presentation, I talked a lot about producer responsibility. So we won't be able to make any changes to our current Blue Box program until after it's basically taken away from us. Francis could probably speak on this one a little bit better on how I can articulate that. We're moving towards a full producer responsibility program where all of just the residential aspect will be taken right out of our hands. We won't have to manage it. We won't have to finance it. That is just for residential. And it's going to be, just to address that comment, like, why can't Kitchener, or why doesn't Stratford do the same thing as Kitchener or Mitchell with the wheelie bins? It's everything is going to be status or across the province for the materials collected, and everything is going to be status quo until post 2026 for the level of service, weekly versus bi-weekly. I think it's also, Francis will know what this one, single stream versus dual stream. At one point we had 5 streams in Stratford. So it's basically out of our hands. Once the producers fully take over, they will make the decisions, and they will also have to meet targets on the different materials that we that end up in the Blue Box program.
Exactly. I mean, what Kate was talking about there is true. Essentially, once the regulations were introduced in June of 2021, the current Blue Box program was frozen. Anything that was in place by August of last year was essentially dictated as the standard level of service you could provide. Yeah. And it's a condition of the program. So if you have weekly collection, if you use Blue Boxes versus something else, if you have certain materials, you can't change those now until the producers take over. As Kate has mentioned before, that's going to happen in 2024. They themselves have to maintain the current program until the end of 2025. And then beginning in 2026, they have full responsibility, and every municipality in Ontario will have transition. And then you can probably expect changes there. That the likely changes that I would expect to see then is certainly standardized materials across the province. So it doesn't matter where you live, you're going to be collecting the exact same materials, so that there won't be this confusion across boundaries or whatever. That's going to be the same. There's nothing in the regulation that says about the types of containers you use, whether you use a Blue Box, a wheelie bin, or blue bag, or whatever. The producers are allowed to reduce collection service to bi-weekly service once they fully control the system in January 2026. I don't quite recall what I believe your frequency right now is weekly. Is that correct? Or no, you're bi-weekly now? So, okay, so even there, that definitely won't change. So at least you're not affected that way. But that's about it. I mean, the producers could take over then and say, you know, we like bags and we just want you to bag everything, and you're going to lose your blue box, you'll go to bags. But it's going to be totally under control. Kate or her council can't do anything about it. The remaining element that's yet to be discussed is those facilities that are excluded. So all your ICI sector, your school, not your schools, but your nonprofits, your churches, community centers, public facilities, whatever, they're all not included in the program. And I imagine they'll want to continue some sort of service, but at that point, it becomes a negotiating point between the city and the producers to provide those services, unless they hire somebody separately to do it. And at that point, it becomes very difficult because it's, pick and choose addresses within the community. The tonnage is not really there, so the economies of scales aren't there, so the costs are going to rise. It could prove to be difficult, or if the producers are open to allowing this sort of activity to happen, which we expect they will, it'll be just a subcontract to the existing one, trying to maintain services.
So I guess time will tell how all of that rolls out.
Yes, for sure. And a lot of it right now, the rules for those changes are being drafted, and they won't be public until July of next year. At that point, we'll know a lot better where we stand. We expect from the collection perspective, it's still going to be probably an option for the municipalities to continue to provide those services, either through themselves or through a contractor. We expect that the processing happening across the province will change drastically and probably reduce the number of facilities across the province from the current 50 or so to probably half a dozen to a dozen facilities.
Okay, big changes. That kind of jogged my memory. Chris, do you know, at one point I know it was being discussed that the province was going to ban organic waste going to landfills. Is that still in the works?
There is a policy that has been put out by the Ministry of the Environment, Climate Change and Parks to basically roll out a landfill diversion plan. It hasn't gone live and there's no set timelines, but the policy has been put out there, and starting with requirements of municipalities of a certain size to implement a green bin program, generators of food waste of a certain amount per week to ensure it gets diverted from landfill. And so those changes will probably come out in the next, I'd say, 2 to 3 years.
Okay. Again, big changes potentially there as well. I would think, I mean, on the surface level, I would think that that's good for business for you, but we'll see how that rolls out. And final question is for Sammy. Sammy, what is your next target material from the ICI sector that you think we should go after?
There's so many different facets to take that. Again, if we're focusing, we can look into restaurants again. Now that it's so confusing with compostables, again, trying to work our way through that. But as well, even like if you look around and you look at grocery stores, they're a huge example of the waste being produced with their bags, but even just the supplies, the containers that all the food that you buy come in. But there's so many different sectors, which it can become overwhelming when you see the amount of waste, but it's also great to look at and see all the potential for waste management and reduction. So.
Thank you. And that's a really good note to end on. Again, being mindful of time. So I would like to sincerely thank all of the panelists that joined us tonight. I really appreciate your time. And there were tons of questions, as you heard. I think it just points to the level of interest that is in this area of ultimately trying to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, because as we talked about Earlier on, the city has declared a climate emergency, and there will be a climate action plan that will be produced. And solid waste accounts for 14% of our greenhouse gas emissions right now. So thank you very much. Again, the recording of this event will be on the city's website. That is at cityofstratford.ca/climate. I just had to scroll up to see that. And moving forward, really encourage you to visit the Climate Momentum website and sign up for their newsletter. Every week they send out an update on what's happening, including things about events, information about events like this, or what council is working on and ways that we can get involved. Lots of thank yous in the Q&A to all of our speakers. And again, I just want to thank you. And yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting us all to speak on what we're passionate about. We all truly appreciate that.
That's actually,
Absolutely.
you reminded me that I'm thanking the panelists, but also Anna and Emily from Energy and Environment. They did the organizing and reached out to you. And Tatiana at the city is always very helpful. And Bill from Climate Momentum for that land acknowledgement. I don't want to forget anyone. So thank you to all of our speakers, and thank you for those that listened in and provided questions and feedback.